Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Well, hi everybody. This is Todd Helms with another episode of the Eastman's Wingmen Podcast. And today I have on the one and only Ryan Bassham. Ryan, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going great. Super stoked to be able to chat with you today. It's been a while.
Yeah. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of irons in the fire. And we'll talk about some of that stuff. But sure. Man, what's life looking like for you these days?
You know, I'm living the pretty standard COVID life. It's full of masks, grumpy moms because we can't really do things that we normally do with our kids, canceling a lot of international trips, pretty much what everybody else is dealing with, I would assume.
Yeah, and so you're still doing the I Get Ducks thing, right?
No, so actually, I've actually had a lot of change. 2020 has been quite the year, and for us, it's been primarily positive. I mean, we've just like everybody else, we've faced some interesting trials with this year, but I've kind of gone off in a different direction, doing some different things.
And I knew that. I wasn't sure exactly what irons you still had in the fire and what irons you've taken out.
Right.
I mean, you're a super busy guy. You in the past you've had, I Get Ducks and your big game hunting consulting business.
Right.
You worked with Sitka for a long time. You worked with Drake for quite a while.
Right.
I mean, you've been in the industry a really long time, and you've been around and you've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of change. And so, I mean, but 2020 kind of turned everything on its head for, like you said, for everybody. But
for everyone, yeah.
What does that look like for you? How has your life in the hunting world changed? What are you up to these days?
Yeah, no. So, from a career perspective, I'm still very much in the industry. I'm kind of working now as a brand marketing consultant for several brands in the hunt space, and even outside the hunt space. And that's kind of been something that I've chatted about with other colleagues and friends over the years. And the timing just never felt right. And for a lot of people, it's like, man, do I really want to jump off the cliff and go for it like that and leave the cushy job? And opportunities kind of just came to this point, and I was like, let's give it a whirl. It's been fantastic. So I'm getting to work with a lot of fun brands, not only in the waterfowl space, but in the big game and whitetail hunting spaces as well. And still running our booking agency, although that looks a little bit different today since most international travel is shut down. But it's still going well. We just had a lot of clients shift their focuses more to North American type of opportunities. And then kind of getting ready to do some other things too. I'll keep that a secret for now, but I've got some other things in the works. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been really great for our family, and nobody can complain about having more family time and a little bit more time to hunt. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, both of those are good things. That is for sure.
No doubt.
I definitely know I don't get to do as much stuff with my kids and my wife as I'd like. My wife we're staring our first little boy here, God willing, the end of the month, first part of September. So our world's going to get added by another one, but
it's awesome, man.
Yeah, pretty excited about that, but
heck yeah.
2020, everything has been crazy, and we haven't got to do as much cool stuff as we'd like to, but that's life. It happens.
Sure.
But
that's right. You learn to roll with the punches. This has been that year. How do you overcome trials and adversity and, find the positive in it?
And that's one of the things I think that a lot of duck hunters, if they step back, a lot of waterfowlers, if we step back and we look at, okay, I don't get to go to Canada this year, or, my Nebraska turkey hunt got axed, or we step back from all of that, we're pretty fortunate as a group because we get to hunt pretty much in our backyards for most of us.
Totally.
That's one of the best things about waterfowl is that it's accessible. Not everybody's got elk running around within 30 minutes of their house,
That's right.
Or
exactly.
they might not have a stellar piece of deer ground to go hunt. You know, they might have to go hunt something else, but for almost everybody, there's access to ducks and geese. You know, it was funny. I had
100%.
a buddy of mine from the South, grew up in Florida. He was showing me some pictures. He was out here doing some trout fishing with me this last week, and he was showing me pictures of a hunt that he did that they were hunting divers in the surf down right in the salt. And he's like, dude, I grew up down there. Growing up, never even thought to do that. He's like, you'd look out there and see those redheads, and there were some cans in his picture, and bluebills and some bufflehead.
Right.
I mean, really some bucket list birds for a lot of guys, you know.
Totally.
And they're right there, right out off the beach. And he's like, yeah, man, we just went down and grabbed some brush that was piled it up and sat there and threw out some decoys, and we shot the hell out of them, you know.
No, I think I agree with you 100%, man. I mean, and quite honestly, like when I was younger, that was one of the things that kind of why I gravitated to waterfowl hunting, because in my younger years, I saw that as the easiest opportunity for me to get to hunt as much as possible, because I grew up in Texas. And so growing up in Texas, it's like, sure, there's some really good hunting there. It's different for a lot of people in comparison. But you know, there's plenty of public lakes and rivers and whatnot to go and find some success on. But for me, I was like, man, like I'll never be able to lease land or own land or pay to go on some of these trips. I never thought that would ever be attainable for me.
Right.
And so waterfowl hunting, I was like, well, that's pretty attainable. I can do that. And so I gravitated towards that, and now I've been incredibly fortunate to travel and go and do things beyond my wildest imagination, things I thought I'd just read about in books and whatnot. But you know, what I've learned as a waterfowl hunter is pretty much I don't care what state you live in, you have an opportunity to go out and probably find some waterfowl hunting. Now, you know, there's a few states there. Yeah, sure, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because of access, or the fact that your state just flat out doesn't have a ton of ducks. But I know people in Arizona and New Mexico that still go out and get after it. And you don't think of those states as great duck hunting states, because they're not.
And they've got
opportunities are there if you put in the effort to go out and find it.
No, I completely agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but when you said Arizona, New Mexico, it got me thinking into it. You know, they have some specific birds down there that to most people be like, that's a hen mallard, you know, and it's like, no, this is actually a mottled duck, or, you know, they've got some bucket list birds that if you're chasing, you got your bird board, you know, and you're chasing that 41, those 41, that, you're going to have to go some unique places to get it done.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm 100% a checklister. You know, I think I'm sitting around 73 waterfowl species worldwide. And I'm trying to get to 100. And but if you think about that, like most people, they sit there and they're like, oh, well, yeah, I want to get the 41. Well, even if you break it down further, as far as North American birds, there's actually a few more than, I mean, there's subspecies. I count subspecies. You absolutely should. They're different. Like you're talking about mottled ducks. Well, you know, there's Mexican mallards, there's your Gulf Coast mottled. You know, I consider the Florida mottled. I mean, the Gulf Coast mottled is sedentary primarily, as well as the Florida mottled duck. It'll range back up into South Carolina a little bit. And then you got your black duck. I mean, on and on and on. And you can play the same game with Canada geese here in North America. And so, I mean, there's actually, I mean, if you're wanting to get out and get a unique experience, it's pretty dang cool the amount of species we have here in the lower 48. And what a lot of guys too, they'll say, oh, why, you know, I don't need to go checklist all those birds. And it's like, yeah, I used to think the same thing. And for me, what it's turned into, the reason I'm pushing so hard to get to 100 is, at the end of the day, I am an adventurer 100%. And I don't have to be successful. If I get to go and see a new place, learn something new about how and why they're hunting that species the way they are, that's just more tools I'm putting in my toolbox. So no matter where I go, I can be like, hey, you know, I remember that one time I was hunting in this place with these guys and they did this. I never would have thought to do that. I'm going to try it here and see if it's applicable. And just the experience that you get from going out and chasing some of these these birds that you never thought of is worth it, man. It's so much fun, so educating. And, now I've got friends all over the world that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's pretty cool. I highly recommend everybody look at everything that the lower 48 has to offer in the way of species and identify those birds and go have some fun.
No, it's funny that you say that, because and I think and you could probably speak to this. I haven't had the opportunities that you have had to travel and do some of that stuff. And I look at you and I kind of, guys like me kind of live vicariously through guys like you sometimes and go, man, that's so cool. There might be a little bit of jealousy mixed in there, but it's so cool, when I see you go, holding up Egyptian geese, you know what I mean? And it's like, that is cool. I have the same thing, man. I've been fascinated by waterfowl, birds in general,
Right.
but waterfowl especially, since I was very young. I grew up
Right.
on the eastern end of the Michigan's Upper Peninsula. I grew up literally. I could paddle a canoe to Canada. I mean, it was literally right across the river and the bay. Well, that's a major funnel for waterfowl. It's kind of, we got birds there that, the Atlantic Flyway was like, we'd see, if we got the right storms, you'd get birds that were from the Atlantic Flyway.
Right. Y'all get some old squaw come through there, right?
So, say that again?
Y'all get old squaw that kind of come through there, don't you?
Yes. And growing up, we didn't hunt a lot of divers. We'd hunt them early, but then, deer season in Michigan is it's like it's like a state holiday. Everything shuts down. Everybody goes to deer camp. That opening day, holy geez, you got to be in that deer stand.
Better be there.
Oh man, you never know when that big buck's gonna come true. But anyway, so that kind of, ducks would take a little bit of a back seat. And quite honestly, we did a lot of puddle duck hunting in that area. We shot lots of teal early. We killed tons and tons of wood ducks. I don't know how many times I sat on little beaver floodings and would shoot my 2 Drake wood ducks and then sit there the rest of the night waiting for a black duck or a mallard or something. Right. And I'll just see 1,000 wood ducks come into this thing and not have, and just sit there and watch the show, which was amazing.
Totally.
But so we didn't, by the time those old squaw and some of those diving ducks would come down, and you could hunt them on the river, on the St. Mary's River there's a lot of those bays and stuff, but a lot of that stuff froze, because that country, that's some serious winter country up there.
Definitely is.
And it usually sets in about Halloween, and I remember a lot of Halloweens where it was really cold and there was snow on the ground.
Right.
And so within a week or two, you got deer season that starts on the 15th of November. But a lot of times that early November, you'd only have a couple, maybe another week after Halloween, and stuff would start freezing. And so then if you wanted to keep hunting ducks, you'd have to move to the big water. Exactly. And we didn't have the equipment to hunt the big water growing up, Dad was struggling to raise a family, and Mom and Dad were working hard to get things done. And a big decoy setup and a big boat was just not in the cards. So we got after what we could, and that meant hunting fields. We hunted a lot of dry land and stuff that would get some sheet water in it because of the rain in the fall. Yep. So you'd get an oat field that had been harvested in, middle August or early August, and the Canadas had picked over in late August and early September, and then they'd moved on, and the mallards had come down from Canada. And they'd be and it would have sheet water in it by then. And you're standing there in knee-high rubber boots hunting mallards in 6 inches of water, in an oat field, and just clouds and clouds of birds.
Oh yeah,
I remember
that
my
could
first
be some of the best hunting you can find, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And growing up there's weird, man. It's kind of like Saskatchewan. It looks similar in the fact that it's pretty flat. Sure. It's brushy with sloughs all over the place, and there's kind of some farm country. And we had a lot of birds growing up. And, I kind of look back and go back to what you were saying about, if you look hard, there's usually birds right in your backyard.
Oh yeah. No, there's always a way to get at them. I mean, it's a matter of find them. And then, don't doubt the scout. I like to watch plays for
man.
several days if it's a new place, and learn how they're using it, what time of day they're using it, understanding all those components. How do they come in differently if the wind's coming from a different direction than it did the day before, and yeah, you figure out how to get your hide right, and you go in there and try and find some success.
Yeah. When you're talking about lists, we kind of got off track there a little bit because I was talking about some of the crazy birds that we used to shoot. You'd be doing field hunts, and you'd shoot like the craziest stuff. I remember shooting ringnecks in a field.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did these guys come from? But they're out there hopping around, waddling around with the mallards and the wood ducks.
Oh yeah, totally.
Just,
well, I had a pond that I used to hunt in Texas, tank, whatever you want to call it. And I say a pond. This thing was probably like 10 acres in size, and
sure.
Honestly, there was no reason why birds should be on it, but they roosted is what they were doing. They were roosting at midday, and that's pretty much how the whole thing was utilized. There wasn't a whole lot of great food on it or anything like that, but there was always a ton of birds, and we called it the erotic exotic. And I think it's interesting because, and where I'm going with this is because you're talking about the north end of the flyway that you grew up hunting in, and how differentiated some of it could be with the species of birds working in an area that you typically wouldn't find. I think what's interesting, as I've hunted up and down all the flyways, is to see at what times of year how those birds, depending on what part of their life cycle they're in, as far as breeding or they're focused on migrating and storing up food storage for that and what have you, how they use different habitat to their benefit and their needs, and then how that changes as they migrate south. And then for some reason, I've found this very typical. Like, you get into some of the southern ends of each of those flyways, and there's certain areas at certain times of the year. We shot 16 different species of ducks off of this one pond.
Wow.
And in the course of a season, this wasn't all in one hunt, but it just shows like how unique some areas can be, and when what species they can offer there, and some of the weird stuff you find. And I mean, never did we think we would shoot that many different species off one place. And I think we hunted it, I don't know, half a dozen times throughout the season. We didn't put a ton of pressure on it, but it's crazy. You never know what's going to come into the decoys. That's what I love about waterfowl hunting. You truly, Montana's pretty cut and dry. You're going to shoot Canada geese and mallards for the most part, which is great.
Wyoming's the same way. Yep.
But
we get some different birds.
You never know.
Yeah.
But up here,
absolutely.
we're like, is that a quill? Is that a quill? No,
yeah.
No, it's not a quill. Is that a snow? Is that snow mixed in with those Canadas? Oh.
Yeah, I know it.
They're going to do it.
I know it. Oh my gosh, man. We had one a couple of years ago. We found a big feed one morning with Canadas, and there were 3 little Ross's geese in there with probably 500 Canadas. And I'm like, well, those suckers are easy to pick out when they come in because they're little and they're white. They stick out like a sore thumb, right? And I'm like, we are killing all 3 of those Rossies. Well, we had a funky wind that morning, and we started out, it was perfect. And it was one of those deals where as soon as the geese started to show, the wind switched. And so I got birds in the air, and I'm like, well, I guess we're just going to take what we got on this first spin, and then we'll change it up. We'll move stuff around. And all 3 of those Rosses came in on the first spin when the wind was bad. And I killed 1. It was one of those deals where it was like they came in off my left shoulder.
Right.
And I went, guys, we got to take them on this pass because this is as good as it's going to get with this wind. And we sat up, and everybody's dumping Canadas, and I had one of those Rosses right in front of me, and it was like bang, flop, and then shot a Canada or 2, and it was like there they are, and we're stoked because we just don't see a lot of those birds.
Sure,
we're
you gotta
same as you are in Montana. Yeah, you and I don't live that far apart.
Right.
As west as the West goes, we're neighbors out here, but.
Exactly.
It's kind of the same birds, same flyways a little bit, but it's just funny. You get wrapped up in the different birds. For us here early, we get usually when season opens, we've still got, our season usually opens here in Wyoming the end of September, first part of October. So it's always tough to get out because sometimes you got a good big game tag and you're wrapped up, and it's like,
Sure.
do I want to leave this, once every 10 years elk tag and go hunt ducks on opening day? But if I don't have any tags, I'm hunting ducks on opening day.
Totally.
There's no doubt, because we get a split that happens. Then we get a shutdown, and then we get to start a second split. And I'm, same as Montana, our hunting doesn't get good until the end of November, December, January.
Right.
When we get
most people don't realize that. They're always like, oh, it's going to get good early, and then it'll be frozen up there, and all those birds will be down here, and they don't have much of a December, January season, and it's just not the case at all.
No, the longer
we get a long season.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. So I'm, and it's fun to get out and chase some of those early birds, because there's birds that we don't get to see the rest of the year because they're gone. We get quite a few shovelers. See lots of northern shovelers, and they're not those colored up Hollywoods, but they're early season, but it's still cool. That's when we shoot our blue wing teal,
Nice.
I'm sure we have, I don't know about Montana, but we have quite a few in the spring. We have quite a few cinnamons that come through here on the reverse migration.
I've seen cinnamons here, but man, they don't hang around very long.
No, they don't.
They're in and out. And I see them more on the reverse migration, I feel like.
Yes. I don't. I wonder if part of that is they're not as colored up in the fall. They don't have that real great plumage in September when they
harder to identify them.
Yeah, harder to tell.
But too, with a lot of species, and teal are one of those, they're migrating on photo periods too. And so any given year, depending on the photo period, I know right now I'm not paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to birds. I mean, I'm seeing Canada geese here, just our residents, and it's fun to kind of watch them. But at the same time, there's some other stuff coming up that I'm going to get to first with pronghorn and elk season around the corner, and towards the end of that, right before waterfowl season, I'll kind of switch gears. But I just don't pay too much attention. I know they're here. I see them on accident. But man, they are gone, long gone by the time October rolls around.
Yeah, they're out. We usually have them it's the same with doves. We have a dove season in Wyoming. It starts September 1st, and you got about 1 week before we get our first September storm, and then it's like the mourning doves are gone. We still have the collared doves, the Eurasians, that you can shoot those year round in Wyoming.
Sure.
There's no limit on them, but we've had some great shoots on those. But yeah, those early ducks, man, if you get out and hunt some I don't know, some moist soil environments for some of the stuff that the rivers have flooded and there's still backwaters in them or whatever, we've had some great shoots. We really have. And you get some totally different birds that you don't get to see the rest of the year. Our green wingers will hang around all winter long on the river.
Yeah.
Not in big numbers, but you'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden this little bird will go zipping through your decoys, and you're like, that was a green-winged teal. And nobody's paying attention,
Right.
He's usually about 2 feet off the water and just hauling.
Zipping through.
Yeah, but you never know. But you talk about a bird on my list, and I have to admit, dude, I'm a little jealous of you this year because you drew a tag that I have always wanted to draw. You got a thunder swan tag for Montana.
Well, here's the thing. I've drawn 2 swan tags this year.
I know.
3 days later, found I drew Utah, and my wife drew her Montana swan tag.
Your wife drew too?
Yeah. So
you guys go buy lottery tickets after this, or what?
We should have, because here's what's crazy. The first year we lived in Montana, my wife drew a swan tag. And I was like, oh, awesome. I'll probably draw one next year. Well, the next year rolls around, nothing.
Right.
Oh, that's okay. I'll draw one the next year. Nothing. Finally, year 4, I draw a Montana tag, and she's drawn 2. But no, we're looking forward to it, man. I've been on swan hunts before. It's a blast. It's a ton of fun. It's definitely different, but it's again, it's just that unique outside the box opportunity that kind of gets you away from what your day-to-day typically is like as a waterfowl hunter, wherever you may be. So we're looking forward to it. It'll be a ton of fun.
Oh man, I am super jealous, and I know that's not that's something that I should be, but that's a funny deal. Dan Picard here in the office is from Northwest Montana, and he's like, Yeah, when you draw that tag, let me know. I know exactly where to go. I know exactly what we need to do. But what are I without getting into secret, I don't want secret spots, but what's your plans for this, man? Because those are not something you get every year, and you kind of got to make a plan around those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so a buddy of mine, Rich Buse down in Utah, he and I've talked a little bit. He also drew the Montana tag.
Nice.
And so he and my wife actually drew at the same time for Montana, was it 3 or 4 years ago as well. And so we've got a spot here. I think, more than anything, it almost turns into a big game hunt for birds. Right. And so we know what the migration pattern is. We know where they like to stop and stage. There's some great public access for those birds in Montana and Utah. And so we know about what time of the year they migrate through. We know where. It's a matter of just, waiting for those numbers to build up for the right opportunity to go and get after them. And usually late October, beginning of November is when that time is. And, there's 2 ways to really kind of hunt them. I'm going to have, a handful of swan decoys that I'm going to fabricate on my own and have to deploy. They make some swan calls. Honestly, you can kind of make a sound that's good enough with your mouth and get them to come in and do it. I was goofing around last season with some guys and was just mouth calling at them. And sure enough, they freaking locked up and were trying to figure out how to come in and looking for, whatever was making the noise that they thought was a swan. So that's one way. And then, if all else fails, it's a matter of just, don't doubt the scout. Like I've said, know your wind and get in there and you can pass shoot them pretty easily too. That's how my wife ended up having to shoot hers. So, and it's interesting too, because you want to be picky, you get to shoot one. And everybody wants to shoot a mature one. They're great to eat, but additionally, most people keep it and mount it, which you should.
Absolutely.
And so you're sitting there trying to pick out a nice mature bird, typically. And so, that's without divulging too much of exactly where we're going and all that.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of scouting around that time of year. There's a couple of different biologists we can call into and get updates on daily number counts or weekly number counts, and we'll just kind of go from there and get out there, put eyes on it, put together a plan, and go in and fill some tags.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. One of these years I'm going to draw, and I'm going to be here.
Come with me, dude. Come up here.
I know.
Just call me.
We should.
We'll figure it out. I'll keep eyes on it, and we'll make it happen. I'd love to take you out.
I would. Yeah, I'll bring a camera, and we will film that, because that is something that I would love to do. And no, if you're serious, I would love to. I would love to tag along on that. That would be super cool.
Dude, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's chat about it some more and figure some plans out. And if I can get up there and get away, I will be there. That would be really super cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
But yeah, that's a hunt that I have. That's been a bucket list hunt of mine. I look at the H41, the Hunting 41 guys and their bird board that they put out. That's a super cool resource for hunters.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And I get looking at that board and I'm kind of like, I've got 31 of the 41 checked off. And I'm like, there's a handful that I'm going, I may never have the opportunity to go after those unless something happens and I'm able to actually, go and do that. Like, totally. You're talking about a big game hunt for birds. That's the way our sandhill cranes are here in Wyoming. You get you get a tag.
Yeah, but then you go down to like the panhandle of Texas or Oklahoma, and it's like, you shoot 3 a day.
Dude,
decoy them over stuffers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another dream hunt. Right.
Anybody who hasn't done that hunt, take the time to go to that part of the country and hunt sandhill cranes over stuffers. It's a blast.
Yeah. And how many times have you done that?
I did it for like 8 years in a row when I was living in Texas. Like right when I was fortunate, I didn't realize it was like a 6-hour drive. And so every year, me and a buddy, or my father-in-law and I and a couple buddies would drive out there for 4 or 5 days, and we would hunt sandhill cranes, we'd hunt lessers. If the playa lakes were full, we would hunt mallards, and then in the afternoons we would chase pheasants around. It was nonstop. I mean, you're hunting all day long. It's so much fun.
I don't think a lot of guys think about Texas that way. I think a lot of guys think Texas, they think whitetails, they think exotics. They're more in the big game realm. Maybe some quail, and some bird hunting. Yeah, but guys don't think
interesting.
That way.
When you divide, so I'm from Texas, so I that's probably the only reason why I understand Texas the way I do, because I get it now that I live up, in Montana and I'm out in the West. Everyone's perception is like, it's just high fence freaking ranches. Like I don't want to do it.
Right.
But when you look at how it's all broken out as a state, it's like, well, West Texas is kind of its own ecosystem. I mean, there's very distinct regions across the state. It's a big state, so it's very different place to place. Right. And then the coastal waterfowl hunting is amazing. It's so much stinking fun. Totally different than what you're going to experience out in West Texas and the Panhandle. And then where I grew up in Northeast Texas, where we still have some family property that we used to farm on, it's very much different than the coastal or West Texas stuff you'll find. And it's a lot of buckbrush. I won't call it flooded timber, but it really badly wants to be flooded timber. But, you hunt those backwater sloughs and some of the rivers and public lakes up there in the northeast part of the state. You can get a little bit of everything. And so I was fortunate at a young age, over the state of Texas, I could hunt a lot of different types of scenarios, with the exception of geese. That's the only thing that was kind of tough. I didn't grow up hunting a lot of geese. It's still something I'm kind of learning and trying to figure out, but you could go out to West Texas and hunt lessers. And so I don't know, Texas is probably underrated as far as the waterfowl hunting opportunity. There's more iconic places to go.
Right.
But it's kind of a sleeper in my mind.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few places around the country that are like that, actually. But Texas definitely has that rep.
Sure.
You said about flooded timber, and it badly wants to be. The reason I laughed so hard is, dude, 3 guys in a row now. I've got Ryan Bassham, Barton Ramsey, and Wade Shoemaker on this podcast, and they've all said the same thing about flooded timber. They're like, nah. In fact, Wade went so far as like, nah, that's just brush with water in it. That's all you're hunting,
That's all it is. But it's awesome. The hunting can be fantastic. And those guys want so badly to be like, oh yeah, no, we got flooded timber over here. And I'm like, guys, I grew up saying the same thing. Nope.
I know. I did too. We grew up hunting in the woods, hunting wood ducks on beaver ponds, and it's like, well, yeah, it's flooded timber, and it's like, no,
it's not.
When you talk to guys that are they're like flooded timber aficionados, I just laugh because Wade just, oh my gosh, man, he's like, nah, bro. Nah, that ain't flooded timber.
It's not. I wholeheartedly agree with Wade and Barton both. They're both good buddies of mine, and we've actually never had that conversation. And I didn't know that you had already talked to them about this. So that's pretty funny that we all are on the same page.
With Wade. Yeah, it started with Wade, and we got talking about favorite places to hunt, yada yada yada, and the timber. And I knew he was going to say timber because that's what everybody from down there says, And it's like, okay, which that absolutely 100% legitimate. But it was so funny, and then it was Barton's turn, and we got talking about it, and now it's just like it's become a running theme for the Wingmen podcast.
Well, I feel like we have established then exactly what it is. It can be great hunting. I mean, honestly, like where I grew up, it was world class. I mean, we would have days where there's 4 or 5 of us out there, and you're picking out your greenheads, and then looking for a pintail drake or wood duck drake for your kicker. I mean, it was that good.
Yep.
And it was all buckbrush and smart weed, and maybe some tree line surrounding the slough.
Right.
That in our minds we would have loved to say, oh yeah, it's flooded timber, but it can still be fantastic hunting. But I get it. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to hunt in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and some true flooded timber, and it's not that.
No, it's when you do it, and I've never hunted the true stuff, like you said, Arkansas and where those guys are hunting, but it's like you can imagine,
it's amazing.
I mean, really it is like,
it's worth going if you haven't hunted flooded timber, true flooded timber, in that southern Mississippi flyaway region. It's definitely something at least once in your life you should do as a waterfowl hunter, just just so you know. See, like it gets referenced so much. Like just go
Right.
experience one time, and it's not that hard. Good grief! I mean, I could drive there from Montana. It's not that big of a deal. Takes a day to get there. Whatever.
Right.
But you know, I think it's one of those ones that everybody should do at least once. I get asked that a lot. You know, I get asked. You know, we've kind of been bouncing around a couple different topics. I get asked if you could go hunt anywhere, where would you go? And then I get asked if I could go hunt the most amount of species in one hunt in one particular location, probably different from what they're used to experiencing, where would you go? And so for that one, and for Utah, because I don't know how much you've hunted the Atlantic flyway, but that's the most affordable place. Get up there in the Northeast, hunt those New England states. You can go in and you can check 8-9 species of birds in 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And it's a cool hunt. It's different. You've got the nostalgia because of the waterfowl hunting culture and history there. It's a different thing. It's really cool. I'm planning on going back this season. It's been a few years actually since I've hunted over there, and I try and make it over there every 3 or 4 years or so. It's just a really cool area and whatnot to hunt. And then you know, for me, I feel like we always remember the first major waterfowl hunting experience we had. Maybe it was the first time we went out, or we have whatever that memory is. For me, it was hunting back there on our old family farm, and hunting in that buckbrush slough, man. And people were always like, "Man, you've hunted all over. Like, if you could go anywhere, where would you go?" And unfortunately, that's my answer. Like, that's where I fell in love with waterfowl hunting.
Right.
Is back there hunting in, you know, buckbrush sloughs. And so for me, that's definitely what it would be. But if you were to go outside of that, you know, hunting the timber is a special place. I like hunting ducks more than I like hunting geese. That's no secret. That's a fantastic hunt. And then if you like hunting geese, you know, there's some amazing hunts up in Canada that everybody should go and experience. And
yep,
you know, that's a great one. I think some of the most fun adventures I've had were in the Bering Sea hunting king eiders. That's a trip. It's not a high volume hunt, but it's a pretty amazing experience. Australia was really cool. They are a bunch of rednecks, and they have all the different countries outside of the U.S. They're the way they go about hunting ducks is most closely related to how most waterfowl hunters would do it. Because I think a big misconception with U.S. hunters is they're like, oh yeah, people hunt ducks in other parts of the world. They probably do it just like we do. Man, they don't do it anything like we do.
Really?
They don't have the resources. They don't have an economy and an industry built around decoys and calls. Like a lot of that's foreign to them. They're like, whoa, what is this stuff? And so Australia is probably the most closely related in that regard. But man, I could go on and on and on, but those are the ones that stick out in my mind as some of the more fun waterfowl experiences I've had, both here close to home and afar. I mean, you can't go wrong.
No, that's so cool, man. That's one of the things you kind of led into with that was, and I asked early on about the I Get Ducks thing, because that was something you'd done, and you've traveled all over the place to hunt ducks and geese, obviously, you know, and what you just alluded to. You know, but you go back to that little hole in Texas. You know, you go back to that little.
Remember where you came from.
Exactly.
You got to remember where you came from.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and I think back to, we shot ducks as a byproduct of geese when I was growing up. It was all about geese. And I'm not 100% sure why that was. We had lots of them. Right. And I remember when Michigan instituted their resident hunt in we call it early goose season. It started in September 1st, ran for 10 days or 15 days, depending on where in the state you were, but it was aimed at controlling that resident giant Canada population. Right. And I mean, that's what we grew up doing. And so it was backwards from the West, man. Our bird seasons were in September and October, and big game season, which was deer only, unless you got lucky with a bear tag, was November. And so it was very, very different than what I do now. But yeah, it was all about geese for us, and I could literally walk out my back door and walk into a number of any farmer's fields, and either find a hot corner where they were trading back and forth and pass shoot them,
Mm-hmm.
which I did a lot when I was a kid because I didn't have to set up decoys and anything. Or when I had some buddies or my dad's help, we'd set out decoys and shoot Canadas. And we had a goose camp, Ryan. I mean, it was
awesome.
like
we
had a group of dudes that started going north to hunt geese at around the turn of the century. And I'm talking like early 1900s, like probably 1910, or after World War I, there was a group of dudes. And then their sons fought in World War II.
Wow.
Kept it going. And it kind of died out, and then it would get going again. And we continued that, and there's still guys doing that, still part of that group doing that to this day. It was in an area of the state where it was kind of a resort area that lasted through that time, and there were some. It's not farm country. I mean, this is like little dairy farms type deal with a pasture, and that's what these migrating geese would stop over on these pastures. And there was a big refuge to the north of there that's just, I don't know how many thousands of acres of nothing but swampland, basically. And it was a big stopover for migrating Canadas out of James Bay and Hudson Bay. And a lot of those birds that we were the first people they'd ever seen.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They would blast down. Yeah. They would blast down out of Canada on a stiff north wind in late September, mid-September, late September.
Right.
And they'd fly, they might stop over someplace, but we were the first people probably that they saw. And it was evidenced in the fact that, we had this big group of guys hunting this big pasture out of these hay bale blinds where you take 4 hay bales and you put them together like a 4-leaf, clover.
Yep.
And you sat either in the corners or in the inside. And we set up, everybody had shells. I remember when I first hunted with silhouettes, everybody's like, "Oh, those aren't going to work," and good grief, Heath loved them, but
right.
It was nuts, man, because that's what I cut my teeth doing. 12 years old out there, shooting these big migrating honkers, and you could kill 2, but then we'd have 20 guys out there spread out all around this big property, and we all stayed in this cabin or cabins. It was it was tradition, and it was something that I grew up as a kid. My dad would take off for 4 days every fall and be gone, and come back with a cooler full of geese or goose breasts, and usually a bunch of grouse because they would upland bird hunt in the afternoons.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it was like for me that's that version of that Texas slew. For you, if I could go back and do one thing, it's like goose camp. That'd be,
dude, and what I love about it is everybody has that story. I don't care what age you started hunting waterfowl. Everybody has that story where they have that one memory they can go back to where it all started, and man, it fuels a fire that can spread and go all sorts of cool places.
You ever read any Gene Hill?
I haven't. I sure haven't.
Oh man,
I should write that down. Gene Hill.
I mean, he's long gone now.
Yeah.
But he is the one, between my dad's passion for bird hunting and then the goose camp and the tradition in my family. His books, man, I mean, he talks about all kinds of hunting, but he's definitely a wing shooter. Definitely a wing shooter, bird hunter. And I mean, upland, waterfowl, you name it. But his stuff is phenomenal. He writes about dogs.
Check it out.
I mean, he had a book called Mostly Tail Feathers, and he wrote a column. I'm going to Google jockey this because I want to find out exactly where I'm at with this. But his books literally drove me for years and years and years about, those stories. He's got a pile of them. He's got a Hunter's Fireside book, Mostly Tail Feathers, Hill Country. I mean, you name it. But he wrote for Guns and Ammo, Sports Afield, Field and Stream. He wrote for a bunch of those different, those big publications. And
awesome.
Just, just crazy the amount of stuff that guy did and how much of an impact his stories had on me. It was kind of like, it's so cool. So if you get a chance, check that out. But it definitely the whole goose hunting thing. And that was kind of where that ties into that tradition, like we talked about, where you started, how you got your start. And I don't know, man. That's the best thing about waterfowl, like we said, is everybody's got that story. Everybody's got it in their backyard, for the most part.
For the most part.
Somebody's going to be like, no, I don't have it anywhere close to me. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. That sucks for you. But,
yeah, drive times, for that guy, drive time's relative. I've driven.
I agree.
7 hours.
I agree.
To go jump on a blind with buddies and shoot ducks.
Same thing.
Then turned around and came straight back home.
Same thing, dude. Growing up
that's relative.
It sat there in college, got a phone call one night. It's January in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We're done hunting except for coyotes, and it's like on to, I don't know, basically surviving a Siberian type winter. But,
right.
It was like, I got a phone call on I think it was a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Hey, man, we have a smoking hot field in the morning. And our clients just canceled. We've got an open pit, heaters, blah, blah, blah. You guys got to get down here. And it's like,
that's awesome.
10 hours.
Right.
And we drove straight through the night, straight to this guy's house, just in time to go out. It was January, so we don't need to be in the blind at daylight. These birds are flying until noon. But went out for breakfast, went out, got everything set up, I shot a handful of birds, but we didn't crush them by any stretch of the imagination.
It wasn't what you thought you were going to do.
No, but we had a ball. We had an absolute riot, man.
Yeah,
and we turned around and drove back to college. And it's like, we just spent 20 hours driving for about 6 hours of hunting.
Yeah.
And we were wiped out, but it's like, you're 21 years old. That's what you do.
It's what you do. That would hurt now at my age. Not that I'm that old, but yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah. It was funny. A buddy and I were talking about it the other day about that same type thing. And, some of the stuff that I did in my 20s, stuff like that, like all night road trips to go hunt for 5 hours.
Right.
I look at that now and go, yeah, no. I've got a little bit extra stuff at my disposal now. I'm going to make a long weekend out of that trip.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm still going to do it, but I know what the consequences are now.
Yep.
It is what it is.
When your wife looks at you and scratches her head and goes, what are you thinking?
Yeah. And she hunts, so she gets it.
I know, so does mine.
She still has those moments where she's like, really?
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, really. It's on.
My wife does the same thing, man. She looks at me and just goes, what? She hunts, she fishes, she gets it. But it's like a different level of,
sure,
I don't know, craziness with me, that's for sure. But
definitely.
Yeah, it's insane. But holy smokes, man. So what's your first hunt this fall? What do you got coming up? I mean, I know you've got a lot of big game irons in the fire. And, I'll save that for maybe a Brian Barney podcast. You want to talk to Brian on Elevated and talk about
for sure. No, I'd love to join him on that. I've got big game hunts coming up for some pretty significant ones. But my plan actually for waterfowl this season, it kind of keeps changing. I was going to spend quite a bit of time in Canada and was thinking about helping a buddy guide up there just as for fun. Now that I'm more flexible in my current career change, I've got the ability to do that. I can work anywhere. And so I'll end up actually hunting a good bit here in Montana to kick it off, since doesn't look like we're going to have a Canada season. I'll be here in Montana probably through the course of October or so. And then November, I may venture down south and do what would be the early part of the season in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. I've got some whitetail deer hunts going on down there, which I usually do a duck and buck type of hunt. So I'll do some waterfowl hunting down there, come back to Montana. I'll end up actually guiding part-time for an outfit here in Montana. If you haven't heard of Trophies West, check them out. Super good guys. Have done a ton with Eastman's on the big game side. I'll actually be helping them guide some waterfowl hunts this winter.
Cool.
Super cool area to hunt out there in eastern Montana. So come see us. Come if you're looking for a great Canada hunt and want to see some really cool stuff. Come see us.
We'll put the link to that in the description.
Yeah,
podcast, so guys can check that out. They can just go down, drop down in the description and click that website and go and check that link out.
That'd be fantastic. Craig runs a great operation out there. Outside of that, I might end up in California just because we've got some family stuff going on over there. So I'll definitely sneak out and hunt there. And then I'm going to spend probably about a week or so out on the East Coast, middle of December, hunting brant and divers and sea ducks and all that sort of a deal. And then I tentatively was trying to get up to Alaska. I don't know if I'm going to get back to Alaska. I'm going to Alaska here in 3 weeks, but obviously not for ducks. And then that's probably going to be it, honestly. Bigger stuff. I'm definitely thinking about trying. I was supposed to be in Peru this year and South Africa to hunt waterfowl. So I'm going to try and make those up and go next year on those. So that'll be kind of right after our regular season here. But there will be no shortage of waterfowl hunting for me. I can guarantee you that. Oh, I forgot one. I'm going to go down. I got to go down to Utah too. I'll be down in Utah. So, I love hunting Salt Lake.
Right.
It'll be a diver specific hunt outside of trying to fill the swan tag.
Cool.
But definitely going down there if we're lucky, maybe getting to some cinnamon teal and see what we can do. But man, I've got a lot of stuff going on. My fall is jammed up. So I'm pretty excited. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like you work all spring, all summer, work like crazy so you can just go hunt in the fall, or get as much time on.
Pretty much. I'm still having. I mean, that's what most people don't realize. Like, I say this all the time. Perception's not reality.
Sure.
Whatever I post, like, sure, that's the one fun thing that might have happened that day, but it's a grind. Like, to be able to go and do all this stuff, I'm working on the road or in between hunts. Like, I'm getting up early to do emails before we go on a hunt sometimes. And then as soon as we get back, most guys are laying down to take a nap or eat breakfast. And I'm like jumping on the phone or hammering out emails or doing whatever it is I have to do to be able to live this lifestyle. And so it's not all freaking rainbows and butterflies and crap. I have to work my rear end off to
well, and I think you're right.
But it's worth it.
Right. I think you're right. I think a lot of folks see the glitz, they see the glamour, they see all the dead birds, all the cool places. What they don't see is the work that goes into being able to do that.
Right.
I mean, yes, you're very fortunate that you get to do what you get to do, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into that too. It's not like, oh yeah, I just fell out of the sky and these hunts just surround me. It's
I wish. Sign me up for that.
You make them happen. You make them happen. And so
sign me up for that.
Yeah, right. No, hats off to you, man, when it comes to that stuff, because when you make a passion like hunting or fishing or whatever it may be, when you make that your work, if you're not careful, it'll just become work. Right. And you'll start to resent it. And I think you have a very solid grasp on that, hey, I am blessed. I get to do what I love every single day. And yes, it's work. It's a job, but I'm still doing my passion for a job every single day. And keeping that in focus, man, it's
not easy, but yeah, I mean, that's the only way you can do it. I've seen guys in this industry get burned out on hunting, of all things. They got into the industry because they're like, oh, I like to hunt. It's fun. I love it. And it's like, do you really? Because you're about to find out, working in this industry, like, especially depending on the brand you work for, man, you may not get to hunt as much as you think. And then all of a sudden, all these work is still work. Even though you're working in the industry, it doesn't mean it's not stressful and not, there's a lot of hard days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to be successful. You still have to run a business and be part of that business and function well within it. And so there's been guys I've seen get burned out on hunting, which what has brought them into the industry, because, at the end of the day, they've got a full-time job that they're getting a lot of negative and, types of feelings around something that's tying back into what brought them there in the first place. And you got to find the balance 100%. And I personally found it to be a lot easier in my current career path. And so it's
good for you.
It's been really, really fun. So it's awesome. Something exciting for our family. And we've got some other stuff coming out. Like, again, it's all in development, so I don't want to say too much, but we've got some big things in the work that I'm pretty stoked on. And I think a lot of that will be more public facing next year, and we're just going to enjoy it for what it is and see how long it lasts. And one thing that's not going to change is we're going to do a lot of fun stuff together as a family, and I'm going to hunt a lot, and that's just how it's always been, and hopefully how it will continue to be for us.
Yeah, no, cool. Good for you. That is awesome. But excuse me, got a little catch in my throat there. Sorry, man. Well, I'm going to extend the invite to you too, on the Swan thing. I'm going to try to make that happen and get up there with awesome. That would be cool. But we've got, as you know, we've got some stellar dryland mallard stuff here on and off throughout the year. If you guys
have my attention,
don't hog, if you guys in Montana don't hog them all, but
true.
Last year we didn't. You guys didn't freeze up.
We didn't. No, dude. The last 2 winters here have been mild.
Yes,
and it's been a little bit different game. So.
Yep. And so we haven't gotten, and we're because I'm not that far south of you.
Right.
We have not gotten those big feeds of mallards that we're accustomed to in November and December and January. They haven't shown up. And this last year, I was telling Jim Sobir when he was on the podcast, that literally the last day of duck season, I had permission to hunt the day before the second to last day on this big feed. I probably found 10,000 mallards in this little tiny cornfield. I mean, we weren't going to have to set out blinds. We were just going to throw out some spinners and field decoys. And there was a super brushy fence row. They had stacked square bales along.
Right.
And I'm like, we're just going to hunker down between that brushy fence and those bales. They're not going to see us in there. I mean, it was tiny. This field was tiny. And there must have been a ton of waste grain in there because they were just tornadoing down into this thing. But the problem was the weather was so stinking nice that they were vampire ducks, man. They would feed all night long.
Yeah.
And then what we ended up doing was hunting those ducks on the river. We scouted them out and figured out where they kind of spread out when they go back to roost during the day, or they're back to loaf. They're kind of all up and down. And honestly, middle of the day, they'd kind of trade up and down the river. So you wanted to hunt. Middle of the day was, first thing in the morning when they came back, and then maybe go grab breakfast and then go back out if you hadn't filled your limit, because they'd kind of trade around. But we ended up shooting in the middle of the day. But I really wanted that dryland spin, those big tornadoes of mallards.
Because it's awesome.
It wasn't going to happen, and I could not get on that field for the last day of season.
Right.
I don't remember why the landowner said no, but I could hunt it the day before. Well, the day before was like 65 degrees and sunny. The last day of duck season was like 5 degrees and snow, spitting snow. And I went out there, no kidding. We went out. I hunted in the morning, and I shot a quick limit of greenheads in the morning.
Right.
And I was like, all right, I'm done, but I got to go check it out.
Sure.
And went and grabbed a burrito from the gas station and a cup of coffee, and just went out and sat there by the edge of that field. Sure enough, about 10 o'clock in the morning, it was just a tornado of mallards into that field. And
that's awesome.
Buddy and I sat there on the last day. We were limited out.
Enjoyed the show.
So we were good.
Enjoyed the show.
Yeah, we just sat and enjoyed the show, man. But if I can get something like that,
I'm in.
Like that, I'll call you.
I love hunting. I love hunting mallards in the timber. It's one of my favorites. But you cannot underestimate a good mallard field hunt. I mean, it can be spectacular. You let me know, buddy. I'm in.
Yep, I'm there. Like I said, we grew up. We had that right in our backyard. I'd have an oat field that'd been picked, and sure enough, here comes all these mallards hot out of Canada. And they're back there flitting around in the sun, in the dark, feeding all night long under a full moon. I can hear them out my bedroom window. Like that just fueled it. And to this day, if I can get in on a cornfield mallard hunt,
absolutely.
And you throw a little water in there if it's got a water hole out in the middle of it or something, and you can stand and pick standing corn.
Oh yeah,
even better.
Oh, yeah,
even better. But
I love it.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. But well, dude, I think we've covered this a little bit. I'm going to let you go, but I've got one more question that I've been asking everybody.
Okay.
And I think I know what the answer is going to be, but you might surprise me.
Okay.
If you could only hunt one bird one way for the rest of your life, what's it going to be?
mallards in slough flooded timber type habitat.
Right back to that Texas hole. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean I every time I talk about it, it's like watching a playback reel of that entire morning. Like that's what did it. Like that, I was majorly into deer hunting when I was growing up, and was bow hunting by the age of 13. And that right there, man, that shifted gears hard. And it's, I think responsible for the drive that I have and the passion I have today, and how I've built my career. It was that moment. So that's it. 100%.
Oh, it's cool. Yep. That's very cool. But, well, dude, I know you're a busy man. I really appreciate you jumping on here with me and taking some time and visiting with us.
Likewise, buddy.
I've had a great conversation. I've had a great time. We've been on for an hour, and it feels like 15 minutes. So
I love it. No, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to get on and chat, and likewise, I've enjoyed the conversation. I love talking waterfowl hunting, so I'm always game for that.
Very cool. No, I appreciate it. And until next time, man, I'll see what I can do about getting up there and chasing swans with you.
I plan on it. I expect to see you here.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.